Welcome to the Erotic Archives, a central library for the women history just couldn't hold. And here we are going to unearth the erotic codes hidden within forgotten lives that are just not really talked about. And so I'm Sade. I want to talk about the erotic art of not conforming in this episode. Tonight, our muse is Fredi Washington. She was a Hollywood actress, an activist, an icon, and a woman who was both looked at and erased. So if you've ever, and I really mean ever, refused to sacrifice your own nature to fit in, then Fredi is your muse. Please don't ever forget her. Look her up, read her when you're ever in a situation or experience that is trying to box you in, and I would say erase a part of who you are. Fredi Washington was born a Capricorn muse on December 23rd, 1903 in Savannah, Georgia. She was fair-skinned, green-eyed, and had distinct European features, and she could have easily passed for white, and that's precisely what Hollywood wanted. And it's funny, but when I think of the Capricorn artist, I'm reminded of someone like Toni Morrison, right? Capricorn has such a distinct ability for precision, divine timing, and a relentless sense of service. And I feel like Fredi was a high priestess of standards, the woman who is able to hold the line out of reverence and not pride. So, think about your own life, right? I'm going to get deeper into Fredi's story, but what are you building that will outlast everything? And this is the wisdom that Capricorn offers. Capricorns, they do not rush. They do not outsource their erotic authority. And Fredi in particular, she didn't chase the spotlight. Fredi kept on saying, no, I will not pretend I am not who I am. And in that refusal, she performed the most erotic act a Black or mixed heritage woman in the 1930s America could make. She chose herself over access. She chose her Blackness over capitalist, white supremacist power. And in her silence on screen, she radiated so much truth that it made white audiences tremble. She is greatly known to have starred in a film called The Imitation of Life, playing Piola, a mixed-race girl who tries to pass for white.
Why, Piola, child, I'm your mammy. Why, that's ridiculous. I never saw you before in my life.
Passing as white in the antebellum South during the 18th century was a tactic many used to escape slavery, despite the one-drop rule. And it was fiction, but it wasn't fiction. Fredi was playing a woman rejecting her Blackness, while in real life, she was a woman who refused to. And in an interview about the film Imitation of Life, she said, I was showing how a girl might feel under the circumstances, but I'm not showing how I felt. This distinction is crucial. While her character, Piola, sought to escape Blackness, Fredi herself was deeply rooted in it, and she used the role to expose the emotional and societal costs of racial passing, not to endorse it. So, what does it mean when a woman like Fredi becomes the mirror for a nation's shame? She was an actress of immense skill, but they told her she'd never work unless she passed for white because her features let her do it. But Fredi wasn't trying to pass for white. She was trying to create and open doors. And in fact, she was one of the founding members of the Negro Actors Guild, NAG, founded in 1937 in New York City as a welfare and benevolent organization for Black performers. And she faced a different form of exclusion due to her refusal to pass as white, a decision that significantly impacted her Hollywood career and even blacklisted her, right? And here lies the erotic paradox for Fredi. She was too white to play the Negro maid roles, right? Too Black to be cast as the romantic lead. And she became a riddle that made the whole system stutter. Fredi actually once said, you see, I'm a mighty proud gal, and I can't for the life of me find any valid reason why anyone should lie about their origin or anything else for that matter. I have read a book this year called Erotic Archives that I really, really love. The research is so thorough and incredible because Dr. Catherine Hakim argued that beauty, charm, and sensuality and social grace form a power, a capital just as valuable as money or education. And she claimed that this capital could be harnessed, traded, and even weaponized, particularly by women. But, with Fredi's case, there is a lot of complexity here, because what happens when your erotic capital is simultaneously exalted and excluded, when it's only profitable only through the disavowal of the truth of who you are. And, in my Eros Futurism reframe, what if we don't measure our erotic capital or value by how well it functions under capitalism, patriarchy, or white supremacy? And Fredi teaches us that eroticism can be uncapitalized, held close, made sacred, and turned inward, because she was a muse not for the market, but for the lineage and for the archive, for Black women who need to see someone not perform or assimilate. Fredi Washington, she wielded Eros not as seduction, but as sovereignty in a world that demanded that she dilute and disguise. She chose instead to live turned on by her own truth. That is Eros, not just for the gaze of the other, but it's like a sacred current of life moving through the self. One of the root words of Eros in the Greek verb heroine, meaning to desire or to be in love with. So yes, Eros is about being in love with the self, with the soul, the you that God, the creator, knows and created, the you that cannot be edited and unmade. And Josephine Baker played a pivotal role actually in Fredi Washington's career, her early career specifically, serving as both mentor and a catalyst. And in the early 1920s, Baker discovered the young Washington performing in Harlem and was so captivated by her incredible talent, her gorgeous, gorgeous presence, and she recognized her potential, right? Baker invited Washington to join her cabaret group, the Happy Honeysuckles, providing her with invaluable exposure and experience in the performing arts. But beyond the stage, Baker's mentorship extended to introducing Washington to influential figures in the entertainment industry. But their relationship was more than professional. It was a bond of mutual respect and support between two pioneering women navigating the complexities of race, identity, and artistry in a segregated society. Now, using my Eros Futurism concept, I do believe that some of you have been called to be in the public arena, but you need a high level mentor that will initiate you, right? And that mentor has to have a high sense of erotic esteem. But more on that at another time, okay? But, for Fredi to walk as a muse in a world that wants to edit you, and to carry beauty that could grant you access but still say no, that is priestess work. And Fredi lived her life on that threshold. As I said, she became a founding member of the NAG, a fierce advocate for civil rights. And though Hollywood turned its back, she never bowed. She never bowed. And she understood that to be visible is not the same as being free, and to be desired is not always to be loved. And Fredi didn't belong to the fantasies of whiteness. And so being in that liminality, right, she lived in the grey zone. Often these grey zones are lived and taken up by muses and mystics, whatever you want to call them. They are not defined by mainstream clarity at all, but there is so much Eros there. So much. And so, after Hollywood, Fredi didn't disappear. She was able to reinvent herself. She became a journalist, an even more devoted activist as well. And so, I can imagine Fredi writing a letter to us all, right? And saying something along the lines of this. To the women who watch from the threshold, I know you. I know what it's like to be looked at and not known, to be loved conditionally, to be offered power but only if you shapeshift. I was told I could have everything if I lied about who I was, but I loved my people, I loved my truth, and that love was erotic. And this is what we must understand. Eroticism isn't just about sensuality or what we can do in the bedroom. It's about self-possession. So, don't forget Fredi. Please don't. And in your own time, in your own reflection, ask yourself this: what would happen if I refused to be legible to systems that never saw me. And choose one aspect of yourself this week that you've been editing to be palatable and just allow it to become undone. Unfreeze it, melt it, dissolve it, do whatever you need to do. Thank you so much for being here and watching this as we resurrect Fredi Washington's story and what we can learn from her in terms of owning our own eros. So I'll be back to talk about more women who lived in between the lines.